Good night. This is Dr. Bev again, talking a little about defamation by the FBI over more than 20 years. And today I want to talk to what happened when the FBI took this defamation of my character to Europe. As I explained before, they implanted me in Munich, Germany, with the help of a dermatologist. And after I got well, after that massive surgery, without my knowledge and permission, I left and went to a town in Germany called Konz, K-O-N-E-S. And the FBI followed me quite obviously. I rented a house from, I think he was a professor, and I moved in. But when I moved in, I was surprised to find out that the house was not empty. They didn't take anything out of the house except for the living room and dining room area. Everything else, beds and everything, was still in the other rooms. So I had to pack all my stuff in the hallways. And when I asked the owner why I'm renting a house that he wasn't ready to rent, even though it was empty, from what I found out from the neighbor, it was empty for about a year or so. So when I went to the garage area as well, he had packed a lot of things in there. And soon after I got there, I did purchase a car, a small car. It was a Volkswagen. And I couldn't park the car there either because he had taken up most of the places. So after about 2 or 3 months, and he wouldn't move them and still taking the rent, I had a 1-year lease with him. I hired an attorney, German attorney, and I took him to the court system. The court ruled in my favor quite obviously, and it took him a while to take the things out of the house, and the court asked him to refund the rents over the period that I didn't have the house. And I was glad about it because, I got a few $1,000 back. But what happened was the attorney that I had hired knew the attorney that represented my landlord. They were friends. So behind my back, what he did was he appealed the case without my knowledge. And of course, the court ruled again in my favor. But he took from the money that I was awarded by the court, he took a fee for appealing the court, for appealing the ruling, which I didn't give him permission to do. So quite obviously, I lost that money. I couldn't fight. And then, after going back to the place, I was able to park the car because he had moved the things from the garage. And while I went to Amsterdam for a couple of days, came back, the car was gone. I found out that my landlord gave the car back to the Volkswagen dealer, even though I had paid 19,000 euros already on the car. So, and then he had told the neighbors. Apparently, then I didn't know that I was a child molester and prostitute, so they were putting cameras around, and they were throwing things in the yard, things like dirty garbage and things like that in the yard, so I had to deal with that. So after a while, I moved to a place called Ubenburg. It's right on the Netherlands border. Pollenberg is the name. And I moved into a small castle. It was owned by a countess and her husband, but the husband died about 5 years, I was told, before I moved in. So she was alone there. So when I went there, we became very good friends, and we would do things together. She would take me around to meet her family. She had 3 daughters. Two were countesses, and one was a princess or something. They were all royal bloods, but she would take me around to meet them. We got along very well for a long time, her and me and her little doggy. And the neighbors, she had renovated a portion of the castle with modern furnitures and kitchens and stuff like that. It was modern, but the outside was still the old castle type, thick walls and all that stuff. It was a beautiful castle. I lived in the area where they used to have the stables and stuff like that, but it was well renovated, very nicely put together. It was a 2-bedroom place and modern kitchen and living, dining, and an office. It was very, very nice. And she lived on the main castle, which was surrounded by a moat. And you had to cross a little bridge. The same thing you would read in those, you would see in the movies or read in books and stuff. It was very, very nice. It was a very nice experience. And we got along very well. She, we'd go out together. She would take me around because she knew the place. And as I said before, it was right on the border of the Netherlands. And as we go across the bridge, that was the Netherlands. And that's where she lived. And that's where she married the Count before he died. And her father, she told me her father was the mayor in the Netherlands, right across the street from where the castle was. But anyway, what happened was there were other apartments that she had renovated into modern living, and one of the apartments was rented by an Air Force major, and he was a flight surgeon at NATO in Brussels. So he was right across the border for us. So he lived there, him and his wife, and we would do things together as well. And on Thanksgiving, we had a party in one of the houses that was like a haunted house. And that's when I found out what was going on. The FBI had been there because I recall one day I saw a car going across the moat, and it was a American car. It had American license plate, government license plate. And I spoke to the major, and he told me it was from NATO. And it was one of the people that worked at NATO. And then when I checked, it was the FBI. And they had gone to the Countess, and she told her that I was a child molester. I didn't know at the time. So one day I was going to the train, because the train ran right across from where the castle was. And so I went to this train station. I went to the shop, a supermarket that was close to the train station, and I met one of the gentlemen that used to live in Cannes, and he said to me in German, "I know you're the girl that molests children." And I said, "What?" And he told me that the American police that wears the FBI on the back of his jacket told my landlord that I was a child molester. And that's why the landlord did not move his stuff out of the house. And I could not believe what he said at first. And I told him, "What do you mean?" And he explained it again. And I just stood there. I couldn't move. I just was so shocked, because that's the first time now I'm really going to find out that the FBI is actually telling people these things. And to hear it from a German, because German kids, they just go anywhere, anytime, without any parental guide. They, no matter what age they walk down the street, they walk all over the place. But most importantly is that I remember kids would walk through the place that I lived in Cannes. And I understand now why they had cameras up, the neighbors and everything. And I was so hurt. I locked myself away for 3 months, I said. In the castle, I wouldn't talk to anybody. The countess would come by sometimes, knock on the door, and I wouldn't open. I never went out. I just stayed in the whole time, crying and calling my family member back home. And it was just so awful. I just felt like, I can remember, I was just numb. I remember that much. I just couldn't understand what was going on around me. And the neighbor, there was a neighbor that lived in the entrance to the castle. There was a road, and she lived on the other side of the road. And they used to be very good friends, and then I noticed they stopped talking to me. They used to bring me fruits and tomatoes and stuff like that as well. And they stopped talking to me. I just didn't know what to do. And then the holiday came by. I just locked myself away, the Christmas holiday, the New Year's holiday, and everything. I wasn't talking to anyone. I was just alone in Europe with nobody. And I just was so afraid and everything. And then in February, I just got up and I said, I can't stay here like this. I either have to go home or do something about this. So I remember on the 16th of February, I went to the Bahnhof, which is a train station, and I took the train to Geneva, Switzerland, to the United Nations. And on the morning of the 17th, I went to the Geneva, to the United Nations building, and I talked to the gardener. I told him I wanted to speak to somebody about it. And I did. I told him what the FBI had been saying about me, and I had written it up, so I gave it to them. They took it, they stamped it, and gave me a copy, and said they would take care of it. But when I went back to Ubach-Pollenberg, to the castle, I just couldn't stay there. I packed up my stuff and I moved. And I moved, and I went to another place called Naples, N-A-B-L-E-S, which is on the northern part of Europe, in Germany. And I rented another house from, he was a senator. He was a German senator, and he had 2 houses. One was a rancher house because he was older, and him and his wife, and they were tired of their 2-story house, so they rented that to me. They were very nice at first, treated me very well. When I got there, when I moved in that morning, I recall they had a bunch of flowers. They gave me a bunch of flowers and a note, which I still have, a card that says, "You're not alone, you're family." I still have that card. And they were like that. They treated me like family from day one. But it didn't last either. They had 2 sons. One lived far away, and the other one lived close by. But from what I learned from the mayor, because when I got there, the mayor and the senator, they had a surprise party for me at the town square. And they invited everybody to it. And I felt so good and so honored for them to do that. But they had the senator had a son. And from what I was told is that he was always a troublemaker, even when he was a kid, and just always was. And I recall when I met him at first, he was very rude to me, and continued throughout the time, but I just ignored him because my house was, even though it was next door, it was separated. by a fence and everything. So I just stayed by myself, but his mother would come over and the father would come over to make sure I'm okay. Then in November of that year, when I moved in, which was in 2000, it was 2019, I left and I came back to the United States that November for a couple of, just to get away for a while. And then I went back in December and decided I was going to move back permanently. So in January, I hired a mover. I had hired several, and then this one showed up. I wasn't particularly happy about him because I didn't get a good quote from him for moving my furniture and things, because I had brought some furniture over there as well. But anyway, I just wanted to get out of there. So I worked with him that morning. I recall it was snowing a little. And they came and they started packing the things and stuff. And at lunchtime, they said they were going to take a break, grab some lunch. They left. But some of the things were in the truck already. And then they came back and they moved the others and they gave me a quote. If I call it quote, it was something like $5,000. And they left. And I left and stayed at the hotel. But what happened was one of the ladies in the mayor's office who I knew, she told me that the truck was parked down by the city hall, and there were some men going in there with a blue jacket with some initials in the back of the jacket. And I said, what initial? I said, F. And she said, yeah, FBI. She couldn't remember. But she remembered them with a jacket in the back of their shirt. The FBI had gone through my luggage, that they had these movers. And I know now that I had gotten quote from 4. And I remember this one was not the one I had chosen to move, but he showed up. So after I heard that, I knew then that the FBI had made arrangement with that one, and that's why they went through my letter. Well, what happened after, they gave me a quote of, like I said, it was a little over $5,000 or something like that. And the next day, they went up to $9,000. The next day, a little over $9,000. I can't remember the exact amount, but it was more than $9,000. I was shocked. I contacted them and asked them about it. They never budged. And I left and I couldn't get it. I went to the authorities about it. I couldn't get it. Till this day, I never got my furnitures and all my personal belongings, clothes, furnitures, all this. To this day, I never got it because the more I asked, the more they increased it. It went up to $12,000 by the time I was done. And I said to myself, it's not worth it. Until this day, I never got it. Well, I had shipped some home, mostly some bedding. I had some matching bedspread that I had bought when I was in Kuwait and in Iraq. Very luxurious type, chiffon type, matching curtains, and there were like 20 pieces. They had everything to it, matching. And I had sent those home. 4 of them were sent home. I shipped them through the mail and never got here. Never got here. None of them. Till this day, I have not seen them. I know the FBI was behind it all because when I got back to New Jersey, they followed me there as well. So these are just some of the things that I've gone through. Defamation not only throughout the United States, but throughout Europe. The FBI. And today, they're here. I just noticed that they came in here yesterday and put something in the HVAC system. They start the gassing again here. I'm at the Staybridge Hotel in DC/Greenbelt. And the FBI is here again. They are everywhere I am. every single place I go. These criminals never stop. Never stop. They are such criminals, and the reason they're doing that is because I have so much evidence against them. And I'm glad that the Senate has started their investigation. I know the Congress will start there soon as they get all these things clear up about the budget and all this. And after inauguration, they will start on it as well, because it's been sitting there since before they went on recess. So these are just some of the things that I have experienced with the FBI, and it's not going to be finished until the Senate and the Congress stop them. And it can't be too soon for me. So again, all I can say is thanks for your presence, thanks for your patience, and thanks for listening to my problems. Thank you very much, and good night.